They didn't tell me it was going to be like this. Okay. So a very brief history of Penryn. Penryn goes back a very long way. There's evidence of 2 Iron Age settlements on the outskirts of Penryn. One is beyond St Gluvius Church and is still called Round Ring, and others were discovered when they dug the foundations to the university up at Tremoe. So there is evidence of early settlements here. The Domesday Book of 1086, the survey shows that at that time there were 34 families living here in Penryn. After that, during the Middle Ages, 2 very significant things happen. The king granted Penryn 2 charters, and they were charters to allow the people to run markets. That, of course, developed trade, and as a consequence of that, the port developed as well. And in 1265, to top it all, a very large and very important church was built in Penryn, and that brought many, many people to the town. And so it grew and thrived, and by 1547 there were 700 people living in Penryn, and we were sending 2 MPs to Parliament, which would give you some idea of the significance and importance of the town. The town has not changed very much since medieval times in its layout. It is basically the same as it was then. The street structure is the same. There have been 1 or 2 new roads introduced, but nothing to the middle of the town. Penryn's heyday came in the 17th and the 18th century, and this was a period of great wealth in the town. Now, Falmouth was still in infancy. It had begun to develop, but it was certainly not a threat to Penryn at that stage. The wealth of the town was reflected in its buildings. The size and the quality of the buildings kind of reflected the wealth, the growing wealth of those families that built them. There were sea captains, ship owners, landowners with mining interests, and local landed gentry were building houses to reflect their wealth and importance. If I name 1 or 2 families, you probably will recognise some of them. The Ennises built houses here in town, the Pendarvis, the Killigrews, the Trefuses and the Edgecombe's. If you look above the line of the shops to the buildings above, and you look along the line of the roof, that will tell you the size of the original buildings, and they really were handsome and grand houses. In 1970, there was a huge programme of rescue. Penryn was very lucky because it didn't suffer from any kind of Victorian makeover. The Victorians were not here and interfering with our buildings and trying to restructure them and rebuilding them. They were all down in Falmouth at that time. And it was found in 1970 that some 16th and 17th century houses were still in existence, but many of them were in a state of collapse. And so there was a huge programme of restoration. 200 houses were restored in Penryn, and there were 104 listed buildings. That is an awful lot for a very small town.